Let me go first to um, sharing the screen here. Let me go first to something that I've put together as far as a basic way to get into one of the body paragraphs. I think I focused on this a little bit, and thanks to Valeria for sharing this idea because I don't think I'd seen it before when I've done this topic in English 102, and that is the idea of logos, pathos, and ethos in the workplace. Very interesting idea, and something that you can find some articles about online. Just the keywords pathos, logos, ethos in workplace. And I think Google wants you to spell workplace as one word, by the way. I'm not sure that it is one word. Um, so what I started thinking about, let me kind of give my example or use myself as an example for you to think about as you're doing your own writing in each of these body paragraphs. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I know about the use of ethos, logos, and pathos in the workplace? Maybe that's what I want to do first in the body paragraph and see if I can come up with some ideas and some ways to structure that paragraph. And that will lead me to being able to put in some ideas that I found in articles as well, so that it becomes not just it becomes critical thinking, right? It's me thinking about the topic. It's not just me going, oh, here's something from this article, I'll just lift this out and plug it into my paragraph. Here's something from this article, I'll just lift it out and plug it into my paragraph. Boom, I'm done. It's me really thinking about the topic. First thing I wanted to do was put a good, clear topic sentence in there. So I wrote one area in which we see the use of rhetorical strategies. In other words, the brief version of ethos, pathos, and logos, right? The rhetorical strategies. That we see the use of the rhetorical strategies is in the workplace. Um, and then I know I had seen an article, and you might want to think about this as well, doing a little bit of reading before you actually start writing each body paragraph. There may be some body paragraphs where you don't need any support at all. You've got some really good ideas to put in there, and you think that'll fill up the paragraph adequately. Um, but I started thinking here about one of the articles that I found. I'll show it to you in a minute. I don't want to keep switching back and forth between screens. But I started thinking about one of the articles that said something about ethos, pathos, and logos in the interview process. And I thought, well, the interview, that's before one actually gets the job. So maybe I'll kind of break up the paragraph uh, based on timeline. In this case, maybe that looks good. That I'll talk about, the interviewing, the pre-job process, and then maybe the process of being on the job, and maybe even the idea of climbing the ladder of being able to promote oneself within the job. So that sounded good to me. So I continued. Um, it can actually start before one even gets the job. A resume needs to, and then I want to get the idea of logos and ethos in there. So probably I'm thinking along the lines of you know a resume needs to be professionally, has to have a professional look to it. It has to highlight my past experiences in a way that lend themselves to the job. Okay, so the logos is that it, the facts, the statistics, the facts, the logic to hiring me is there on paper, and the ethos is that I look like a credible candidate because um, I've presented a resume that looks good, that looks professional, doesn't look like it was just slapped together, one font, no division between the sections of the resume, nothing like that. It just doesn't look good. So we don't want that. So I'm just thinking to myself, and maybe I'll go to the article, and that'll help me out a little bit. And then I went to the interview. So resume, interview, and I said in the interview the candidate needs to, and I could think of some things there on my own. Candidate needs to dress professionally. Candidate needs to be polite, to use good language. That's the ethos there, because if you look good, you present yourself professionally. Oh, okay, credible. This is a credible candidate, not just some Joe Blow that blew in off the street. And maybe there's a little bit of pathos involved in storytelling. Sometimes storytelling is part of a job interview process, where you're saying, yes, you asked me about how I contributed to teamwork. Well, one time when I was working at the steakhouse that I mentioned in my resume, there was a problem that, so you're telling a story, and that brings in the pathos, because it gets the person who's doing the interviewing a little bit attached to you, sees you in that light. So, I'm going off script here a little bit, because I'm not going to include all of that in my paragraph, but I want to see, what is available in the source material also. And then I said, okay, so resume, interview, I've got the job. Now what? When one has the job, he or she needs to keep the job and climb the corporate ladder by demonstrating his or her efficiency. So both ethos and logos are involved there. And by getting along well with his or her colleagues, and pathos is involved there. By the way, just a little sidetrack note here. You notice that I kept saying he or she. That's because, if I can highlight it here, I used one when one has the job. Now, if it gets a little bit, and you have to be consistent, when I got to the next sentence, I said they. Well, they doesn't go with one. So I either have to be consistent and keep saying he or she, or I need to change the reference to plural. One is singular, but I can change the reference to plural. So I could say, let me change the verb too. When, whoops, stuck on all caps, just a second there. Candidates have the job. See, now that's plural. So now I can say they all the way through. They need to keep the job and climb the corporate ladder by demonstrating their efficiency and by getting along well with their colleagues. See how I can use only the plural pronouns now? I don't have to stick with that he or she, because I said candidates instead of one. So that's a little trick you might be aware of. They need to present themselves with a cheerful demeanor and be able to joke around with their coworkers, but they need to be aware that there are some people that they will need to be formal with. And then I'm kind of thinking at this point along the lines of my last sentence in the paragraph, where I might say, with the right mix of, the right balance of cheerfulness and candidates will go far in their positions because of their use of logos, pathos, and ethos. So that would wrap up that paragraph nicely. Now you notice, I don't know if you can see the corner here, you probably can't, but Microsoft Word is telling me that so far I have 116 words in the paragraph. Well, that's okay. That's a low number, but that's okay, because now I'm going to go back to the articles and I'm going to look if there's some material that can help me out there. So let me start a new share with, I think it's this one. So I'll go with the article that is called Aristotle Wants You to Ace Your Job Interview. Um, and the person, the author here, let's see if we have an author. I don't see an author listed. So when I refer to the article in the body of my paragraph, I'm going to say something along the lines of the author of, quote, Aristotle Wants You to Ace Your Job Interview states, and then I'm going to put in the quotation if I'm going to quote. If I'm going to paraphrase something that he or she says, see, I said he or she because I don't know if this author is a man or a woman. You know, if it's a paraphrase, I'll probably say something along the lines of, according to the author of Aristotle Wants You to Ace Your Job Interview. And then I'll just say in my own words what that person said. So let's see. There was a little bit that I had taken an interest in here when I looked at it earlier. This author talks about the CAR method of using context, actions taken, and results when telling a story in a job interview. He or she says, a train full of toys is a story. A train full of toys, the little engine that could. You've all heard of that story. A train full of toys and candy needed to be pulled over the mountain to the children of the neighboring town. None of the big engines in the rail yard wanted to take on the task of pulling the heavy train up the mountain. I knew that the children would be sad if they didn't get their toys and treats. So that's the context, you know, that's the setup. Think of it that way, maybe setup. And then the actions taken are, you know, I think I can, and you know, the train pulling it up over the mountain. And then the results are, you know, the kids are happy. What the author is telling you is that kind of storytelling can give both logos, well, it can give all three, right? Logos is the action of taking, you know, doing something. I'm sorry, let's start with the context. The logos is showing that it makes sense that there was a need, that I took the action, that there were good results. The pathos is, you know, well, we're not all going to tell the story of the little train that could, but the pathos is, you know, registering emotions because of the success that I had, you know, and how I felt about the success. So anyway, again, I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm not going to type all of that into my paragraph. Now, there was one part that I was really interested in as far as my paragraph. Aristotle believed that rhetoric was effective only if the audience was moved to take action, and what moved them. A credible speaker, ethos, backed up by solid facts, logos, and an appeal to what we value in our hearts, pathos. You build credibility through your appearance, classic tailored clothing, your actions, greeting each person cordially, arriving on time or just a bit early, and your words. So, you know, you see that this person has some of the same ideas that I do. You know, I think what I'll do is, let me switch back to the, I think I'll do a little bit of kind of, so they don't say anything about resume in here. So I'll just say at this point, resume needs to be professional. And, you know, some of the other stuff that I said in there earlier, not look like it was put together at the last minute. And then maybe after that, let me put an ellipsis here as well. After that, I'll talk a little bit about how that builds both logos and ethos. Now, at this point in the interview, and I'm going to say, according to the author of, let me see what the name was, Aristotle. Yeah, Aristotle wants you to ace your job interview. Now, please notice something, and that is my capitalization. Remember that articles that you find online most of the time will only capitalize the first letter of the first word, and then after that, they just skip the capitalization. We can't do that. We're going by MLA style, which means you have to have the proper capitalization in your title. There are some exceptions to the words that get capitalized. You can see that I did not capitalize the word to in there. That's one of the exceptions. And I'll give you those in good time. But if you ever need some advice about what should be capitalized in a title that you find online, let me know. Okay, so back to what I'm doing here within the writing of this body paragraph. So what I want to do at this point is I kind of want to remember some of what this person said. You know, the first thing I'm going to say is, because I don't want to, you know, I do remember tailored clothing. And so I don't want to use the exact same wording that he or she used. So I'm going to say something like, according to the a candidate should show up wearing professional. Sorry, I shouldn't even bother with the correcting at this point, right? The professional looking clothing and should present him or herself in a professional manner, both in his or her speech and in his or her interaction. Okay, I might play with that a little bit. I'm not entirely satisfied with that. You know, something like this will go a long way to creating ethos for the candidate. Okay, so there I've done some paraphrasing, right? Maybe I'm going to, let me look at it real quick. Maybe I'm going to use a quote there too. I do remember that I found something kind of pretty good. The facts you emphasize should be sprinkled throughout your resume. Bring work samples and references to further support these facts. Okay. Research the company in the field, particularly if you are just starting out, and understand what they value. Understand who the competitors are, what problems this particular industry faces, and identify ways to align your skills to help them reach their goals. So let me highlight that. Let me try to copy that, and then I'll go back to my document here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll have a quote in there. So I lifted that. I'm going to have to, it's probably going to show up in a different font, right? So I have to make sure that everything is back in my Times New Roman font after I get done with that. Uh, I could say something like the author of that article goes on to say, okay, now I start my quote, right? So I'm gonna copy and paste. Oh, yeah, it showed up in a very small font, didn't it? Let me just get it bigger for you guys right now. And then what I'll do is change it later into Times New Roman. So, you know, the quote goes, the author of that article goes, and see, I don't need to repeat the name of the article at this point, right? Because the name of the article, the title of the article was just a couple of lines before that anyway. So it's not like I have to be repetitive there, right? The author of that article goes on to say, research how about this? To advise, because at this point they're giving advice to the person reading the article. The author of that article goes on to advise, research the company and the field, particularly if you are just starting out, and understand what they value. Understand who the competitors are, what problems this particular industry faces, and identify ways to align your skills to help them reach their goals. Okay, now that looks pretty good. I paraphrased, I put some a quote in there, and of course, this doesn't have to happen consistently, paragraph after paragraph. There may be paragraphs where you find only, one quote to use, and that's it. There may be paragraphs where you found some good information in an article and you paraphrase that, you put that in your own words. But a lot of the writing, I mean, I would say most of the writing should be your own writing based on the ideas that you've come up with and the ideas that you've researched. Um, so, I've completed that part of it. I found another interesting, just to give you a look at it, I found another interesting article called, hang on, let me find it here. Whoops, not that one, that one. Okay, and then this one right here. It's in a website called Management and Motivation. Looks pretty good. Looks like it's a legitimate website, professionally done website. So I think I can count on it. I think it passes the CRAP test. And again, here I don't see an author. It's not a huge article. I read this article. I skipped around a little bit. Some of the stuff I just skipped over a little bit, but I read it in about 8 minutes. I know there was some stuff down here that I thought was interesting because they bring up ethos, pathos, and logos. They talk about, let me read this to you because it's very small. According to Aristotle, managers should build their relationship with their team in 3 consecutive steps. Build relationships, pathos, sell their values or vision, ethos, and persuade with logic, logos. We can utilize what we know about motivation to build a management style around this idea. And then in the paragraphs below, they kind of go further into that. Where is the pathos? Where is the logos? Where is the ethos? For example, saying things more specific like, when employees see you as a great leader, they are more willing to trust you and be more engaged in the company. To achieve a positive relationship with your employees, it is important to analyze them as a person, read their body language, engage with them. You see, that would be a good quote to use in my essay, right? Because that's well said, it's succinct, and it just reads like a academic quotation. And I can find more below here where the author talks about the other strategies. Um, so I'm not going to go and, do the whole thing, do the whole paragraph right now. By the way, let me go back to the document here. I'm not going to do it right in front of you, but you get the idea of how I'm coming up with some of my own ideas. Maybe I've done a little bit of reading beforehand. I'm coming up with some of my own ideas and I'm putting those in a paragraph. And then I'm going back and looking at my articles, seeing what could corroborate what I've said, what could support what I've said, what could make it better if I have some professional quotations in there and so forth. Now, I do look down here at the bottom, and this is now a 230 word paragraph. So let's see, we're looking for about 800 to 1,000 words. So 230, 230, 460, 690. So I got about, if I had that, I'd have about 700 words in body paragraphs. I've got a little bit to add here. I wasn't done with what I said about, actually having the job and getting along with colleagues on the job and so forth, and then climbing the corporate ladder a little bit. So I got to do a little bit more in there. It might turn out to be more than 230 words, maybe 280 words, something like that. And there is the possibility always of just taking a little piece of a quote and not putting in the whole thing, just what you find valuable in that quote. When you do that, by the way, make sure you still have a sentence that is cohesive, that is not a fragment or some kind of run on or something like that. So, one thing I would like to do in class is back to what I said, I got distracted there a little bit. 250 words, 260 words, something like that. That'll probably get me up around 850 to 900 words. So I might be going over that 1,000 words. You guys tend to be a little bit less verbose than I am. So I don't worry too much about, getting essays that are 1,500 words long. I really don't want that. It just takes longer for the grading that way. And not that I'm complaining about the grading, but it takes longer for me to get it back to you. So let's try to stick with that number of words for the essay, but also do a little bit of the quoting and paraphrasing, as I've been trying to show you in these two videos. So what I would like to do in class, to get back to that, is just to have you look at one of your sources and kind of tell us a little bit about one area in the article where you found something of value, something that could be used in your essay, and why that is the case. And I think that will be valuable to you, and it will be valuable just hearing it for all of the other members of the class. Okay, I'm going to stop the share now, and I'm going to go ahead and save this recording and send it to y'all right now, and I will see you in class.